couldn't figure out what was going on.
Well, let's talk.
I mean, I thought I knew when we made it, but it's no wonder it didn't go to broadcast or whatever. Oh, it did. Forgot. I mean, the idea is great. I just, did anybody really connect that? I mean, I remember I had to, working on it. It must have taken me 6 months or so to kind of connect up the telephone calls and all of that. But I'm just seeing it again after, 30 years or whatever it is. Is it 30?
No,
25?
25.
25? I had no idea what was going on. Did anybody?
Just remembered how cold it was. like winters aren't that cold anymore. It was so cold when we shot that. And I was like surprised we got so many locations.
Yes.
I was like, how did we get all those locations, to run
It
around
was
with
shot in
guns?
30 days, I think.
Yeah, it's so different.
Yeah.
New York is so different.
Yeah.
It was,
You couldn't have done that.
yeah.
now.
I was surprised we got those, the tilted arc and all them, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like home movie for me. I was surprised how much, I forgot it was so much sex. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
We
Like
had-
I was like, oh, everybody's sleeping with everybody.
Yeah.
So, like The Affair or something. I mean, it just, yeah, it was funny. Yeah, I couldn't really tell what was going on either.
Well, this is
What
this is
about
good. It
you?
leads into.
Yeah, did anybody?
Well,
They're not
because
saying.
I had to prepare for this. I actually started to decipher it. This is the third time I've watched this week. So I think it's a little more comprehensible to me
Right.
than it is to you at this point, which is answers
Amazing.
one of my questions that I had for you actually. So because it's structuralist, and that was Michael Kirby, the writer's intention.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, the sex scenes, for instance, one of the things he says about that is that every second scene of each character is always a sex scene.
And
Or
only
a
one, and
or
only
bedroom
one
scene, at
person
least.
talks.
Yeah, and one person talks, right?
Yeah.
So there are these structures that are there. And I remember, like when I was reading Michael Kirby's explanation of this, I thought, wow, I just watched this thing and I had no clue that was going on. So I had the same experience that you had once. So I think there's this way that this stuff doesn't exactly reveal itself, right?
Easily. Yeah.
So another important structure, obviously, is the timeline, because you're always cutting before anything comes to resolution in each scene, and they all have the same length. They're all supposed to be a minute. They may not be a minute, but
we didn't actually do
Right.
that in the end. We did fuck around with the timing a little bit about the scenes. I have to admit.
Well, if you
and-
had 8
yeah.
characters with 8 scenes,
Right.
Yeah.
and they were all exact, it was the way he wrote it was it would be a minute exactly for each scene. That would be too long for broadcast.
Yeah.
So we had to cut it down a little bit.
But we also got it down to, I remember, we got it down to like 68 minutes, something like that. And we had to get it to 57 exactly to go on broadcast.
I can't believe they
TV.
played it on Channel 13.
I can't either.
Was it very late at night?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think it was midnight, actually.
That's when
but-
my films would get on Channel 13, very late at night.
But we did speed it up. At the time, there was this thing that you could do then. You could speed the whole thing up, leaving it exactly the same, so you wouldn't be able to tell. So we just sped the whole thing up to fit the 57. So everyone is actually, believe it or not, speaking faster than they did in the original.
Because it feels like they're speaking slower, actually, because of the
Yes.
lack of sync.
Yes.
So it feels,
Yes, with the,
what you did created the opposite effect.
yes. I see it, I go, wait.
So that was why it's out of sync.
Yeah, well, no, it's in sync. It's only out of sync because of at the time, the chuk-chuk, that.
Posterizing.
Yeah, well, the posterizing, not the posterizing, the, what do you call it? Stop
Stop
action.
action.
We called it chuk-chuk at the time. because it was pretty new
One
then.
of every 3 frames?
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. Because of that, it looks out of sync.
Mhm.
But actually, when we played it without that, it's in sync. Because it speeds up everything.
Mhm.
It doesn't just speed up sped up the entire film
Uh-huh.
in sync. So,
And talk about that strategy and also the strategy of of this graphic style of turning
the
photographic
what
materials
we
into.
called
Yeah,
posterizing
it looks
at the
like
time.
it looks like like Xeroxes.
Yeah, yeah. That was Melody. I wish Melody were here. I mean, we knew about posterizing, but we realized that it's filmed. Ken is really great. He did a beautiful job filming it. But we thought, oh, it's going to be really hard to tell the people apart. We have to give them a color. So each one, believe it or not, has a color. So that brought us to the posterizing effect. And the combination of that with the chuk-chuk, then it just, for me, that was the fun of it, was getting that.
So you were talking about it as a home movie, and that was one of the ways that it struck me the first time watching it, was that I'm seeing this period of the Wooster Group and all these people that were in it,
Yeah.
and it was very nostalgic for me to see everybody all together again, see
Well,
Ron
yeah.
Vaughter, who's no
Yeah.
longer with
Dead.
us. And-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what to say about that.
All right. Well,
Dead, all dead.
all that.
Yeah. I kind of remember after we shot it that it was on the shelf for a while
Yeah.
because I kind of
Well,
remember.
Kenny was supposed to edit it, and I was going to work with him on it, and he said, I can't. I don't know what to do with it. And I said, well, wait a minute, it's right in the script. All you have to do is, he says, the script says every single edit exactly. I said,
Right.
what's the problem? I think he just was so bored by it. So we got Melody in, and she really loved working on it. She had a great time.
Well,
And so I really
yeah.
enjoyed
I think the
working on it.
posterizing too, when you and Melody came to that, it made the performances work. Because
Yeah.
I remember when we looked at it, we were like, oh, this is kind of bad. Like the performances were like, it was great because Michael Kirby wrote it for each person, so he knew
Yeah.
who he was writing for.
And you
there-
can tell who he liked and who he didn't like. So we all had to deal with that, too.
Yeah. I couldn't really tell that.
I could.
Oh. Well, he liked
Do you want to
me.
cue us in on that?
No.
But I
You all
remember,
know.
like, looking at the footage, and we were all kind of like, oh, what are we going to do with this? And then when you and Melody came on it was a new thing, the posterizing and the colors and everything. It made it like a comic book.
Yeah.
And so it's,
And also, Michael, I think he explained some of it in that, he came upon the beautiful, what do you call them, the cartoons of the blow-ups, and he did that on his own computer at the
Yeah.
time.
Oh.
And it was really new, the way he did that. It was all, I remember going, oh my God, we can do this on our own, and it doesn't cost any money, we don't have to go to, it was amazing at the time for us to be able to work on this to do that kind of, do those kind of effects at the time and not have to pay for them. It was amazing. So that also helped for me because that set the tone of the piece. As soon as you see the blow up and the little just sort of like, it was okay for me to continue working on it.
So normally when you're working, because you're on the stage and there's a kind of stylization that occurs, that's just automatic being on the stage.
Yeah.
Or more available.
Yeah.
But movies are kind of not like that. But one of the successes of this piece for me is that you actually find through all these things you're talking about a way to
Yeah. Take
kind
it
of
out
cross
of
over.
Yeah.
So like when you were making this piece at first, was that Was that your intention of
No,
what you wanted to do or not?
I don't
Because it doesn't sound
remember.
like it from what Kate said.
Yeah, no, I don't remember, actually.
Did you want to make something that functioned more like a regular movie, and then when you're looking at it?
No,
it
I didn't
was
know what we
disappointing?
wanted to make. I wasn't
didn't know,
thinking,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
I just, Michael Kirby said, and he says something about it in
The article.
in that article, but it isn't true, what he said. He made
What-
that up.
What did he make up?
He made up that I picked some subject matter, or at
No,
the
actually,
beginning?
this is what he says, because I
Yeah.
just read it. He says, I asked Liz for a subject matter.
I didn't. He didn't
and-
ask me for a
and
subject
he said
matter.
you wouldn't answer him.
Oh,
And so
okay.
he came up with the subject matter, because he
Yes,
kept like
yes.
a file
Yeah,
on these white supremacist groups
yes,
from newspapers.
Yeah.
And then he asked you about that, and you said yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then he asked you about other directions, and
Mm-hmm.
you said you wouldn't give them to him.
I don't remember any of that. I remember a script coming to me, and I'm saying, it's Michael, let's do it.
Oh,
That's
okay.
all I
All
remember.
right. So
He
it
might
wasn't,
be more, but he had a habit of making things up too, so.
he was claiming that you initiated the project,
No.
and so,
He did,
okay.
I'm
so
sure,
that-
don't you
okay.
think?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, he was performing with us
Yeah.
in LSD, just the high points.
Yeah,
And he was writing a lot of teleplays.
yeah,
And he wanted to write something for us.
yes, yeah. And so we said, sure, fine. We got James Seamus in, I don't know if you've
I
ever
know,
heard
he
of
was
him.
an intern,
Yeah.
James.
No, I know.
He was my intern.
I know, I love
was
the
your intern at
credits,
that point?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he helped us with it. I mean, what was the credit we gave him? I don't know at the end.
They were going by so fast, I don't know. I just was looking
Yeah.
at the names.
Right.
It was something to do with producing.
It was something to do, yeah. He was just a kid, just out of school.
It's shocking.
So in other words, we were just doing a lot of stuff during that time. We were, I don't know, we were working on 2 or 3 pieces, and this came up because it could be done in 30 days, and because Willem was just doing films, so he was interested in films, and Ronnie was just beginning to do television.
Yeah.
Parts in television. So I said, well, we've got these people who do this. And I had Kenny there,
What year did,
and Maurice Alberti was
Yeah.
our, and I don't know.
she was second camera,
She was second camera. She's
Yeah.
now
DP.
DP. Didn't she do a film just recently?
Creed.
Creed. Yeah.
No?
So, yeah. So we all sort of just said, oh, let's just try it. We can get everybody's apartment, everybody we know. John Lurie's
I
apartment.
know, see, that was for me.
Which one is that?
It's the one with a round table, where I think they're sitting at the table, a round table. So,
It was
and-
Freya's loft, my apartment,
yeah,
Dennis's apartment.
my apartment, everybody's. We used
Yeah.
everybody's apartment.
No, that was.
There were like
That
hundreds
was
of,
fine.
yeah.
It's the locations. I can't
Yeah.
believe we got all those locations.
Did you have to permit all that?
Yeah.
Yes, everything
So
had
like
to
the
be
subway
permitted.
and-
Everything. Well, not in the subway.
No.
We, what do you call it? We got that by just doing it in the subway. But
Was it late at night?
No.
I don't think so.
No, not even?
It's a different time in New York. Can't you tell by the color of the cars? Got those weird seats. No, that's the only one I think we had to steal. But everything else, even the one right outside the subway station, there would be cops. We had the whole thing. And it was not expensive at that time to
No.
do that. You know, and there were a lot of small films being made at the time. So it didn't seem that odd. Now I go, how possibly could anyone have done that at the time? You know, all the streets where we had to do the cars, run the car chases and all of that, they were all marked off for us. New York in a different era.
And
you know.
what borough were those streets in the car chases?
Brooklyn,
Brooklyn.
yeah. Near Williamsburg, actually. Above Williamsburg.
Yeah. Long Island City.
Long Island
Island
City.
City,
Is that Brooklyn?
No,
It's-
that's Queens.
No.
Then it was Queens. It was Queens, but there was also, I guess it was all Queens in the exteriors.
Some Brooklyn, some
Yeah.
Long
Oh,
Island
yeah,
City.
what am I talking about, the library?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do people have questions in the audience? Yeah.
I just wondered, all the door scenes, all the door knocking scenes, was that meant in the script in the same way as a structural
Yeah.
device?
Like
sorry.
everybody's, the door scenes included a jib arm and a game, some cards or board game or dominoes.
Yeah.
Everybody's first scene is a close-up with a pull away. And then there's a three-person scene where only two of the people talk and it's over the shoulder shots. And then it's an eating scene where somebody's on the telephone. And then there's, I can't remember them in exact order, but every character has the exact same order. And then there's a bed scene and only one person talks. And the door scene is included the jib arm, right?
Yeah.
And then the panning shot and a 360, and it was very prescribed.
Yeah, but I think the jib arm we added, because I don't think
Right,
you
that's
had
not
that
in, that's not in the script.
Right, and Kenny, I don't know whether it says there, Kenny made a jib arm, remember?
Right.
Unbelievable. All those scenes, he's come down. We just gaff taped things together and made a beautiful jib arm. Really worked. I was so surprised.
So one of the things that, it feels very claustrophobic and narrow because you only have these 8 characters.
Yeah.
And yet you're dealing with these larger themes. But it's all, the interrelationships are so petty
Yeah, and the themes are so big.
and the themes are so big. So I
Yeah.
was wondering what, if anything, you guys have to say about that.
Well, only that it's too bad Michael Kirby isn't here, because he'd have a lot to say about it. But he is dead also. And he did so many great theater pieces in that time before we were working with him that were structuralist and that had film and remember the photography?
On photography.
Yeah. It's beautiful pieces that would be done in very small spaces around Soho.
Do people know Michael Kirby?
Yeah.
Is that a name people know?
Yeah. He was
guess
just
not.
really,
The father of structuralism?
yes.
Was that what he was called?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was, I think he was teaching at NYU at that time and writing a lot. And so I didn't really, it's really his, I mean, I loved the task of it was fun for me, but I didn't really, and I also liked the fact that he had tried to include, these pieces of real life going on. You can't see them so well here because the posterizing and the size of the screen and all of that you can't see. But a lot of things that were happening at the time are included in the narrative, in the visual narrative, and I liked that. For me, it felt like a collage because I was reading the script, I was reading the actual material that he took it from. And so the way he was doing it was sort of like slapping it on to some other kind of thing. So whenever people would say it, I felt like, it was almost an abstraction for me, the way he included the stuff from
Current events.
Yeah, all the current events.
I forget the name, but that when the couple that had the little girl.
Yeah.
It
It was this couple had a little girl and they kept her in a crib at the time. It was a huge.
New York
They
City.
New
murdered-
York.
They murdered her.
Murder.
Yeah.
No, did they murder
The
her? Actually, yes.
husband
That's
murdered
right.
her.
That's right.
Eventually.
And that picture you can see really well if you see it watching on the television. And there are a couple of things like that. There's another thing on the television in one of the other scenes, but I couldn't recognize it here anymore. So, but that was interesting to me, the way he was putting that together with that kind of false naturalism of the cop show. So I was interested in the structuring of it. basically.
The
But
form.
the larger scenes, the larger themes, now I look at it and I'm just amazed that we could do it, or they played it on PBS. That's why we had to put the little disclaimer before, because in those days it wasn't assumed that if you made a bad character in a performance or something, that you believed that was your idea. You know what I mean? How do you explain that?
I think you just did.
Oh,
Yeah.
And now, you know, I think people would say with this, because there is no, it's not clear what the moral intent is, which is part of, Michael Kirby's thing. He was not interested in that at all. He was only interested in the structure of it. I think people would say, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't make that piece anymore." So this was a very different time, and he was very different. He was more like the artists from the 60s and 70s, and times have changed. A
Yeah,
lot.
you could put material out there without a clear
Yes.
moral intent.
Moral
or-
intent, yeah.
Can't do that now.
No.
Yep.
Were there any, I guess, films of the time popular films that you guys identified with, or somehow crossed over in your mind into what you were doing that weren't strictly like related to structuralism or just more profane kind of popular
Right.
stuff?
That's a good question. I can't remember.
Well, you named them, actually, the police shows that were Michael
Yeah.
Kirby's.
Well, they were his. I didn't watch Kojak. Michael Kirby watched Kojak. I mean, I
What
saw
were you
Kojak.
watching?
I don't-
You watched
I
a
didn't
lot of
have
TV?
I didn't have a television at the time.
You didn't?
No.
1990?
Oh, maybe I had a small one. I can't remember. I didn't watch cop
You didn't
shows.
watch regular
No,
television?
No, but you couldn't help knowing what they were because, you know, there's only like 4 stations, so a cop show was always on somewhere. But I never sat down and watched one. It just passed by my eyes so many times. And it's
Never
Never an affinity for that particular genre.
No.
That was really Michael Kirby.
There's Michael. Yeah.
Well, there's one thing with Michael Kirby writes about the humor, and that he's
Yeah.
writing Michael Stumm's character,
Yes.
who, what was his name in the film? Can I remember?
Ray.
Ray. Yeah.
So Ray, he said he was basing it on what Michael Stumm was actually like to work with, that he was telling jokes all the time that nobody thought was funny.
Yeah.
But, and that's true certainly of the character, except there is one moment where he gets one of his colleagues to laugh, right?
Yes.
He has one
I think
successful
it's-
moment
I
out of
think
all
it's,
the episodes.
Nancy.
Nancy.
Right, yeah.
This is a huge deal when Nancy laughs, yeah.
Yeah.
There are all those kind of in things that if you watch it a number of times, you can get. But it's like,
But,
Yeah.
but Kirby kind of writes about it like as if that's the only funny thing in here, and actually,
No.
there's a lot of comedy, so.
Absolutely.
And that's clearly from
Yes.
you and the
Yes.
performers, so.
Yeah.
I
you
think
wanna
it's-
talk about that?
Well, honestly, I kind of think it's in Michael's
dry.
script.
Yeah.
But I also think it's because of the comic book effect, because
Yeah.
I think it was kind of flat before
Yeah.
you did that.
Yeah.
And because we're not like good TV actors. I mean, I think Ronnie actually, and
Yeah. He had the, but I couldn't understand a word he said here.
yeah,
He had a very low voice and he didn't use it at all hardly, you know, he's talking like this.
yeah.
And it's now it wasn't hard when we played it the last time I saw this, I think, was at MoMA when they did it like 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was very clear, sound
Yeah.
was very clear.
Yeah.
So I think some of it has to do with the space also, which
Yeah.
is very hard.
The seal.
But
But
I
he
think
had the, remember the thing he did, he was doing cop shows.
he
at
was
the time.
already on Miami. He had done a couple episodes of Miami Vice, so he
Yeah.
he wanted to make a little more money than
Yeah.
in the experimental theater, and he kind of had a real disdain for television, but as he said, he catapulted himself to the brutes to make money. And his first job on Miami Vice, Ron was gay, and really was happy when they said you could bring your partner or whatever, your spouse. They would fly his spouse there. He was quite happy to bring his boyfriend. And one of his first lines, he was supposed to walk into the office and say, "How about those dolphins?" And he didn't really realize it was the sports team he was supposed to be referring to. So I remember Ronnie saying at the time, almost like he was conflicted about what he was doing in TV. And I think he almost developed that delivery as a way of protecting his, he got a take on it.
Yeah.
So he could live with himself to
Yeah.
be in cop shows.
Yeah.
Because he died in 1994. Didn't he?
Yeah.
I was just thinking, oh,
Yes.
shit.
This was 91?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions people have?
Well, I think
I
we
think
should.
that's it.
I think we should break for stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.